That string of, archaeological, I don't even know if I should call it archaeological, but, the string of hypothetical videos has ended, and I'm now watching a series on um, Russian geopolitics, which is something that is underreported here in the West, um, but is really something that anybody, really everybody, should have a better understanding of. It might help people understand events in the world as they occur a lot better. I stopped on this picture here. I'm gonna have you take a good look at that picture because this is an excellent picture of Europe's geography. Now, if you study anything about European history, you'll understand the importance of that big, kind of grayish blue mass, the European plain. Um, you'll notice, for example, when I was talking about Iranians in Europe, geez, that is kind of. See, I'm not getting flickering here, so this is like. Maybe it's. Actually, I think it's just the light. Can I get. No, okay, so I can't get too close with this thing. How about that? Okay. Um, that's another thing to keep in mind regarding my old interference pattern. See, if I turn this thing off, it takes like 10 minutes to turn back on. Just how bad is it? I'll have to test that. But I mean, it comes in and out. So why would it come in and out? Anyways, what I'm talking about right now is the European plane. See, it didn't do this before, so I'm actually going to take a step back here again. It seems to be distance related. Okay. Okay, so you might notice. Actually, there's some interference here too. I have to wonder if it's even the YouTube video as well, but it's different from a distance. Okay, but you'll notice that if you start over there, around the Caspian Sea, where we think Iranians came from, all you've got is flat land moving all the way west to the coast of France. That's not how North Americans consider. It's not how we imagine the geography, right? We imagine Europe as this safe enclave, this isolated space, and Russia as this giant mass, this giant geopolitical mass that exists in between. And I mean, it's the Cold War world, but it's not just the Cold War world. It's an ethnic idea as well, right? So we split Europe right in half there like that. But if you look at it geographically, you can see that there's no reason to do that. And in fact, if you were to make a geographic split, it wouldn't be from east to west. It would be from north to south, right? Where all those mountains, where the Alps, and other, the Alps and the Carpathians and the other mountainous areas start jutting out. But we see this is south of Germany. Now, it's not a coincidence at all that the split between flat land and elevated land is very similar to the breakdown between the Romans and the barbarians, Germans, Celts, and Iranians, that occurred in the distant past. So when I talked about Iranians moving from the Black Sea to France, we can see how easy that would be. Now, what this video actually suggests is that that area is indefensible for the Russians, and that's correct because we see that if you're in Germany or you're in Bulgaria, all you have to do is start moving. Right? There's nothing. There's no natural defenses that can protect you. And it works the other way too, right? This is why it was so hard to protect the Roman Empire, because this huge mass of land, of flat land, made it so people could, trot basically all over the place. You could start up the top of the Caspian and be in Greece in no time, raise an army along the way. There's nothing that's going to stop you, and there's nothing that the Greeks can do except wait for them to get there. Right, and you can see that why it is that the Greeks put such an importance on trying to build fortifications up in that little enclave here to block them off there, and why the Romans tried to do the same thing up here and block them off there, right? And you can see why it is that when the Romans did fall, it was through going over the defenses in Belgium here. That was the spot that broke them, and that they kind of had a choice where they could either move behind the mountains here or try to conquer the whole area, but that it didn't make sense to. Like, could the Romans have conquered Germany? Maybe. But then what have they accomplished? Right? They've just opened up a bigger front. Right? They would have had to take all of Russia. And hence is the problem in European history. The problem that everybody has had. We don't talk about it in those terms, but it was the problem that Charlemagne had in expanding east. It's the problem that Napoleon had, and it was the problem that Hitler had. It's that, and it's the same problem that the Romans had for thousands of years. It's that once you can't defend that area, right? So you're best off just abandoning it. And if you want to try to hold any of it at all, you've got to hold all of it, and then look what you're doing. You're conquering Russia, right? So for the same reason that Russia is impossible to defend, Russia you can see that it's impossible for Russia to defend itself. For the same reason, it's impossible to invade Russia. It's impossible to win. Because at any point in that huge gray-blue mass, someone could raise an army and just start marching. And I guess maybe at one point it'll be possible to conquer Russia, but you're going to need some cattle prod technology that is just beyond our comprehension at this point, right? So that's an important map. And from within that, you can see why. Well, first of all, you can see what happened in World War II, right? You can see where the Russians stopped. They stopped where the plains meet the mountains. So they had to stop. And you can see why they wanted to hold that region. Because they wanted to hold the plain. And you can see why the Americans are prioritizing controlling as much of it as they can. Because they know that if they can block, it's that pass off around near Poland. That's kind of the important part. And you can see that if you were Russia, you would be less concerned about Ukraine, and even less concerned about Syria, really, unless you were just trying to distract, right? If you saw, all these bad guys, in the plane, and you said, "Shit, we want to get these guys out of here, so let's start a war in Syria instead." Um, I'm oversimplifying, and it's not fair to accuse the Russians of starting the war there, but um, you get the point. Let's let's take the fight away from here, away from the Great Blue areas, and somewhere else, right? Where it's less dangerous, less existential. Because again, as you can see, a major push, and Russia would be cooked. And again, that's what Napoleon saw. That's what Hitler saw. It's the most important map you'll ever see, probably. And that's probably why you've never seen it. You can understand all of European history by looking at this map. It's amazing, eh? So, and this is actually it's a good series. I watched it a few months ago. I just wanted to skip ahead a little bit. I can't remember why exactly, but I didn't want to watch a full video. And so I skipped ahead to the first thing that was after my archaeological delve, and it was this. So I have seen this. And it explains the aspects of things that are happening. I'm going to come back to this in a part two. But if you study this map, you'll see that it's like everything that you really truly need to know. But the conflict that's happening right now is you can extrapolate from this map. But what I was saying was that if you were Russia, you can see why you should be more concerned about Poland than Ukraine or Latvia, because it's Poland that is where you can cut people. You can cut NATO off if you had to. Poland on the one side, there, and the age-old struggle for Bulgaria on the other side. Because this is what has happened in the past, right? The only successful invasion going that way that I know of was the Goths. They started around here, and they settled around here. So it was a movement of people that way. But they were eventually repelled by the Huns. Well, burned to the ground basically, who came from this way, right? And then launched all kinds of attacks on Europe over here. But even that is, well, actually no, sorry, it's a little. I'm thinking a little bit later. I'm thinking the Mongols. When the Mongols came in, they were stopped on the river going here. They were stopped in Poland, right? And in fact, that's another good example. The Mongols came in that way, and they very quickly took over that whole area. But they were stopped in Poland. And so they weren't able to get that way. Had they been able to break through Poland, they would have very quickly kept going all the way around there, right? And once you get around there, then you can start moving back up around the other way, and that entire area closes in. That's what nobody's been able to do, right? Because of the importance of the fortifications in this area. And you can see how important, number one, you can see how important Germany is, and number two, you can see why it's been the center of so many wars. It's right in the middle, right? So if, France and Russia are fighting, they're going to have that fight in Germany. And if Germany wants to go anywhere, if it moves one way, then it gets tied. It's you can see, like I say, you can understand all of European history by looking at this map. It's an amazing map. Best map I've ever seen. Most important map you'll ever see, which is again why you've never seen it. Let's get a good shot here of this map. The map. Okay, so my actual reaction to the video, probably the best thing I can do is actually read the comment that I had previously put on the page, but have removed because I'm removing all my comments because I didn't leave the comments so that your page has content. I left the comment as well. I created the comment for my own content. So I mean, if you want to eliminate my ability to create content, I'm not just going to leave the content there for free. You don't get a gift like that. Sorry. This is my comment on that video. It's actually a useful short because it explores the situation from Russia's defensive priorities, which has been their dominant concern since before Stalin. So much Western media focuses on this bluntly comical idea of Russia as an offensive power, trying to conquer the world. It's also useful in the sense that it really draws the connection between modern Russia and historical Rome. This foreign policy is quintessentially Byzantine, and so are the consequences. Perpetual suspicion of imperial treachery. I think that in the broader historical perspective, Western civilization has yet to truly break its way out of the division of the Roman Empire. I know this is very abstract, but it's something I've drawn attention to before, and I really think there's a lot of truth to it. It's tied into the American historical psyche, and to the foundation of the nation itself. This idea of America is the new Rome, but it's sort of typically American in its lack of scope. The typical American, cluelessness, right? London was the actual new Rome. Washington is in many ways the new Constantinople, but it's recursive, right? As much as the American Revolution was a civil war within the British Empire, rather than an actual revolution, and it wasn't a revolution in any meaningful way. It was, a war between factions of the elite. That's what you call a civil war, not a revolution. And it was one that ended with Washington as the new center of the British Empire, the new Roman Empire. That's only the western half of the story. And typical American-centric, perspectives of things. And this isn't racial, this is nationalistic. Black people are worse than white people when it comes to this. This idea of the America being the center of the world, right? But there's another half of Rome. The eastern half was the half that lasted longer and had unquestionably a larger footprint on the way that history unfolded. And the eastern half of the story sees Moscow as the new Constantinople. It's the continuation of the eastern sphere of Roman civilization, and it sees the Russian Empire as the continuation of the Byzantine sphere. So then when you understand that, you have to ask the question of what the Cold War really was. And what was it? Well, it was a civil war in the Roman Empire, where you have the Byzantine half in Moscow fighting against the new papal empire in Washington. As history unfolds, conflicts localized in space and time open themselves up to these broader interpretations. These details fade and what's left is a broader narrative. And when the story is told to children on distant planets, it seems very unlikely to me that any meaningful separation will occur over what we call a modern era. The whole thing will coalesce. Moscow and Washington, that conflict between Constantinople and Rome, or between the Pope and the Patriarch, indeed between Greece and Persia. This will become intertwined into a single epic struggle for control over Western Roman civilization. And that is a good way to understand what's in that video. The video talks a little bit about American strategies to... it's a big temperature difference walking out of there. I need to do my dishes still. But the video talked a little bit about American strategies to contain Russia, and it's all very true. But what it was really more about it was about Russian ways to counteract the containment strategies, and it's all about creating divide and conquer around its border regions. The name Ukraine itself means border area, and that's not a quintessentially Russian thing. The Franks did the same thing. I think Austria is one of the Or was Austria the Roman border? The Franks had a few, and the Romans had a few. If you look at a map of Europe, half of the um, areas are named after border. Like half of the countries mean border region. Um, or eastern border or western border or something like that. It's just in the different languages. Um, that's the actual reality of it. But I mean, like Ukraine means like southern border region, and it's the Caucasus is another area that they have broken up. Central Asia and to a lesser extent the Baltics. Although the Baltics are very important to the West because it's a military base. They're really just an annoyance to Russia. There's no real strategic value in them other than ensuring that they don't fall into the wrong hands, sort of thing. Um, because the West sees it as so important, a lot of these narratives get confused about Russia's actual, strategic reaction to the Baltic areas. Um, from the Russian perspective, and I showed you on the map, it's Poland. It's more important. That's the area that they really need to control. Um, and that's their kind of focus. But I mean, that's what they have to do, and that's imperial strategy. It's exactly what the Byzantines had to do. I mean, the Byzantines were. I mean, it was for the last 1,000 years. It was almost reduced just to a city, the city of Constantinople, which itself was hard to take. But everywhere else around it was, in chaos, right? And they were constantly trying to say, okay, so there's this one tribe over here, and we need to find a way to get that tribe to fight this tribe to prevent this tribe over here from forming an alliance with that one. And the whole thing was just a giant divide and conquer strategy. Um, and that's what I'm drawing attention to in that comment is the fact that if you look at the foreign policies, there's huge levels of parallel. If you look at the culture, there's huge levels of parallel. The connection between Rome and Byzantium is far stronger than the connection between Rome and anything, between Rome and Paris or Rome and London or Rome and Washington. Um, Even if you just ignore the fact that there wasn't a Reformation in the East, just the cultural carry-ons are so strong. And this is why I've pointed a few times that I don't think that there will be a lasting peace in that part of the world until Russia is able to conquer Turkey. I say it like that. That's not really what I mean. What I mean is for the Greek areas. I mean, Turkey should not exist. Okay, I'm sorry if you're a Turk. If you're a Turk and you know your own history, you should really agree with me. Is your country has no historical basis. You really shouldn't exist. Um, you know, Turkey has always been a purely colonial power. It came in out of people migrating from somewhere else, set up on top of a different civilization. It really has very little in common with the people around it. Everybody around there still thinks they're invaders. And every part of Turkey, there is a repressed indigenous population. So, as you move from one end of Turkey to the other, you've got Kurds and Armenians, and then you've got Greeks on the other side. You've got Syrians and Assyrians in the middle. There's really not. I don't want to say that there isn't anywhere in Turkey where there's a majority Turkish ethnic group because that would be false, obviously. But the idea of Turkey existing is it's an error in history. It's the mere concept of a Turkish state is an injustice of history. And like I say, if you're Turkish, I'm sorry, but you should agree with me because like if you have a good sense of justice, you should agree that you shouldn't exist. I'm sorry. There's a Turkish homeland in Central Asia. Um, you know, The way Stalin did this might have been a little harsh, grabbing people by the ear and dragging them across the plateau. But I think he was right. Um, Turks have no reason. They have no place west of the Caspian like this. Um, and I mean, I'm all for integrated societies and everything, people getting along and all these kinds of things, but um, the idea of ethnic Turkish, majority groups, or the Turkish uh, nation states west of the Caspian is not an idea that has any historical justification. It's pure colonialism, utter colonialism. Um, and I know that that's going to upset people that want to look at history in racial terms, but that's the wrong way to look at history. The right way to look at history is in terms of power structures. Things are things that set off migrations. Are climate change, or this tribe is invading that one, or whatever. And what happened in Eastern Europe is that a Turkish ethnic group colonized a white group. And you have a situation where you have a Turkish overclass and a white underclass. And you can refuse to see that if you want, but it's there. It's been there for 1,000 years. Um, not more than 1,000 years, but about 1,000 years. And the right thing to do is to overthrow it. And that's true it's largely already happened in Russia. The process of dismantling the Turkish state is to end the process of demongolization of the area. It didn't really totally reverse itself. The Russians were able, or the Slavs, more broadly speaking, were largely able to, push the invaders out. It never happened in Turkey. And that's a part of history that still needs to be done, as the Turks need to be sent home. They've been there too long, and all they've caused is misery. And like I say, I'm sorry, but if you're Turkish, then you should agree with me. Point I'm coming back to is this idea of the Russians liberating Constantinople, and bringing it back to kind of a Greek rule. Again, you won't hear me talk like this very often, but in this particular context, there's a historical process at work that might actually be inevitable. I don't see how you really get a peaceful solution in this area until you're able to reconstruct, this Eastern concept of civilization that was destroyed by invading barbarians. Um, so that's what the video was largely focusing on, is Russia's need to defend itself. And I've lost my train of thought, but it is a video that's worth watching. As I pointed out, just to have a better concept of what Russia is thinking as it's going through these maneuvers. Um, I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to your TV at all. Um, it's useful at the very least to understand what it is that they want you to think, or to be maybe a little bit more fair, to understand their perspective, right? Washington has a perspective. To suggest that it's to suggest that Washington's perspective is of no consequence would be rather delusional. Their perspective is of great consequence, of course, but it's skewed. The perspective that you get from media is not without bias. And if you want to actually understand things properly, you need to look at both sides of things. And this video does a very good job of explaining the historical needs of Russia to um, control the areas around it for its own defensive purposes. And I was making the connection of that um, to the Byzantine Empire, to the eastern and arguably real side of Rome. One other thing I wanted to point out there is that the methods that are discussed in this video and assigned to Russia, and which, as I pointed out, have parallels in Byzantine history, are also utilized by the Americans in the region. So there's one point where they explain that the Russians are, pushing up for a civil war in Azerbaijan in order to create a conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. That keeps them, fighting with each other, prevents them from uniting, and all these sorts of things. It works out into their interests. The Americans did the same thing. A lot of people. Let me state this carefully. It is well understood that the Islamic State has received significant levels of funding from the United States. It's the same kind of divide and conquer, right? A lot of people have a hard time getting their heads around this. It's like, but I thought we were propping up Iraq, so why are we giving money to these people that are fighting the people that we're supporting? And they want to take this sort of like black and white binary perception of things. They want these good and right narratives, sort of right and wrong narratives, where you're fighting. They want to assign a purpose to history, but that's not the way America has ever. That's not the way any empire has ever functioned. And America is. It's not the engineer of these policies. The British did it, and really, the way that the Americans carry out their divide and conquer is descended directly from the way the British did, because that's what the American Empire is it's the new British Empire. There wasn't, that's what happened after World War II, is that the Americans took over. That's what the American Revolution was about. It was a civil war for primacy in the British Empire. We still live within a British Empire. We've changed the name of it, we've changed the locus of it, but it's still the same basic British Empire. And the leaders carry out the same strategies. But we don't talk about this. We don't talk about how the Americans are starting a war in Syria in order to keep Iraq and Syria fighting against each other, to prevent Iran from taking over the area. We don't talk about these sorts of things, despite the fact that they are happening. We talk about them openly when Russia does it. We talk about them openly when we're talking about history books. So when the Byzantines did it, or when the British Empire did it, but we don't see this as it's happening in front of us in real time. It's even less that we're blind to it, and just that we don't want to see it. I think we all know. We can all look at the evidence and we can all see, hey, wait a second. And I think that we all realize it. It's just we don't acknowledge it. In fact, I might even go so far as to suggest that the divide and conquer that the Americans have in the Middle East is probably the single most complicated. The only thing I can think of that comes even close is, like I say, Byzantine foreign policy. And then the very word itself, Byzantine, means complicated, right? A complicated military strategy. That's if you look up Byzantine in the dictionary, you will see that. Even though I mean it's an ethnic term for the today they call it Istanbul, the meeting place. It was before that called Constantinople, after the Emperor Constantine. But before that, it was called Byzantium. Um, so this is where the term actually comes from. It was the initial Greek name for the city of Constantinople slash Istanbul. Um, but yeah, I mean the way the Americans have it set up, with they realize that there's four major powers there, historical, and in fact they may even be being a little too generous. Um, Certainly Turkey is a historical power. Certainly Saudi Arabia, in the sense of it being, the Arabs, that's a historical power. And certainly Iran is a historical power. I think it's been a long time since Egypt was a historical power. Um, Even if, various incarnations of other powers have set up in Egypt, kind of thing. But they've got these four uh, very similar cultures fighting with each other, cut in the middle, jockeying with each other for influence. They're constantly, finding ways to split them apart, open them up, and they've got Israel sitting right in the middle, kind of helping them at the same time as it's such a balancing act, that you really have to go back to a Roman period to find anything close to that. I mean, like what the British did in Afghanistan it's nothing. It's not even close, right? Even what the British were doing in the Middle East is it's. Um, I with the stronger your hegemony is, the more sophisticated your tactics need to become. I suppose that's going to be a linear correlate, but so anyway, so when you see these things discussed, it kind of provides an undertone of Russia being this kind of like sinister force. It's just how empires work. You could say all empires are sinister. Sure, I'm an anarchist. I'll agree that that statism is fundamentally evil. However you want to interpret the concept of evil, but Russia is not, inherently more so, and really their tactics are crude in comparison to the real empire in the world. But this is something that's interesting. I expect it'll probably show up in more than one of the videos that I react to. This is part one. I'll do a part two. It's the second part of the reaction to part one of the series. I'll do a part two as I watch it. Well, it's midnight, and I'm up to 540 pages. But it's still only dated to mid-September 2014. So, obviously there's a lot of commenting going on there that I'm getting off. It seems that I think I'm going to hit a bit of a high point around there. That's about when my profile started falling down. I'm looking at my stats a little bit more closely. It's funny how things make so much more sense in hindsight. I think what happened was I changed my profile picture. As stupid as it sounds, it really reflects badly on people. I didn't even like. I mean, I know I got a little bit of feedback on that. People saying, your profile picture changed, etc. And people were clearly upset about it. But I mean, to think that it would have such a large impact is really disappointing. What it suggests is that people were less interested in what I had to say and more interested in how I looked. Which is, I mean, there's a certain irony in it. I picked a picture that was bad. I mean, I consciously picked the worst picture that I could find. This was the picture it was from 2013, early 2013, when I had black hair. It was a shot of me I was very hungover, and I had taken a picture of myself when I woke up. And it was just a bad snap of myself. And I said, well, I'm going to put a picture of myself up, and I'm going to pick that one. The actual reason that I changed the picture was that it was gender neutral. I was getting too much feedback suggesting that my gender was male, and I didn't like that. So I changed it to a picture that was unambiguously female. It was one that nobody could get confused about. That was done on purpose because I didn't like the feedback I was getting that was attempting to... See, people are really weird about gender like this. Like, they don't... They seem to take some kind of pleasure in reinforcing something that I've rejected. And it's hard to understand it. I mean, when somebody comes to you and they say, I identify as female, why would you enforce a masculinity on them? It doesn't matter what your perception is. Like, just shut the fuck up. Like, there's no reason to... I mean, I to a certain extent, I agree that I don't have the right to tell you what to think. But why would you react that way? Like, there's no logic underlying it other than that you're an asshole. And you, like honestly, like, if somebody tells you that they identify as a gender and you try to, like, reverse that or suggest otherwise, then you're a piece of shit. And there's really no other way to express this. You are garbage. You're scum. You're a piece of shit. And there's no... Like, I'm sorry. And I was sick of that. I was sick of dealing with, like, real fucking bottom dweller assholes. Trying to enforce a male gender identity on me. I did not like that. So I said, fuck this, and I put up a picture where I was wearing makeup, and I had my hair done and everything else. And that removed the enforcement. The other thing was, I mean, there were women hitting on me, and I hate that. Okay, I fucking can't stand that. I put a profile up. I call myself Jessica. I indicate clearly that I identify as female, and I get women hitting on me. It's like you are also scum. You are lowest common denominator, bottom feeders. When somebody tells you what their gender identity is, and you attempt to not only do you ignore it, but you enforce it sexually. No, that's exactly what this person has spent their entire life struggling with. And you want to enforce that? You should be shot. Okay, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. You are somebody who should be removed. You should not exist if you're going to do that. Again, I don't really, like, if you have feelings or whatever, just shut the fuck up. Don't tell me them. Don't express those feelings. And especially don't type them on the internet. Okay? So I was sick of it. I didn't like that at all. So I changed it. And it seems like that's when everything fell apart. Because the premise that I was, an androgynous male that was pretending to be a female or some stupid nonsense like that collapsed. it's like I look like what I said. Gee, surprise. You know, and all of the idiots seem to have dispersed, um, leaving really very little left. And this kind of goes back to what I was saying. I'm realizing that I didn't build a meaningful base of people that were interested in my music. Okay, what I did was I managed to accidentally attract a lot of morons, and a lot of morons that were following me around a little bit, and I should probably be happy that they went away. But that doesn't leave me with any closer to solving the problem ahead of me, which is not how do I get more views or how do I build my social media presence. I don't care about that. It's how do I promote my music. So I'm kind of back at square one kind of thing. I'm really no closer to finding an answer to the problem that I had started off with. In hindsight, again, I should probably realize that it was naive for me to think that I could market what I'm doing at all, really. The premise that I might be able to actually build an audience was really not something I should have ever pretended was likely. Regarding these vlogs, I've pointed out before that I'm doing this for historical purposes. Primarily, I'm documenting my existence. I'm thinking it probably will not be very long before I take them off of YouTube and put them just up for sale on it'll be on Bandcamp ultimately. Again, I really don't think that YouTube is a way to to sell anything. It's a way to market something. Initially, my idea with this was that it was just going to be a worthless product, right? I film myself picking my nose for a few minutes a day and put it up on the internet, and hopefully attract people in a way that would send them off to my Bandcamp site to check out my music, right? That was the thinking. Along with kind of a. I mean, the documentation aspect was there from the beginning, but I never thought that the end result of this would be in any way saleable or marketable in any way. What I'm realizing is that there is more talking being done here, and more interesting talking than I thought. It's just a question of what the process is going to be. It makes sense for me to think that eventually I'll have 25 gigabytes worth of stuff. I'll put that on a Blu-ray disc, and I can package it that way. The question is whether I want to continue doing this in the meantime or not. What I'm thinking is I'll probably let the vlogs sit until I get to 25 gigs, which will probably be sometime in the spring. Well, it's almost spring now. I mean like late spring, early summer. And when I do that, I'm thinking that the second disc won't go up on YouTube. Disc 1 will. So I'll just keep uploading stuff until I get to there. And then when I get to disc 2, I'll just be producing solely for the Blu-ray market. I don't think that's been done. I don't think anybody has ever tried to sell their vlogs without anybody looking at them. Again, I watched that one go out. That was actually fairly quick. I think I've just been doing a lot of rambling today. But again, but I mean that's what I'm saying. What I was getting at was that I don't think that YouTube is useful um, way to do anything really. um, the only way anybody's ever going to get anywhere over YouTube is if you are producing the worst, lowest. I mean, this is the thing, right? Everybody looks at YouTube and they say, "Geez, it's got so much crap on it." You know, like why is it that the worst content? Well, there is decent content. Excuse me. Nobody wants to watch it. The low quality that you see on YouTube is a reflection of the market. Um, that's my analysis of this, and the reason why the trash, but burbles up to the top, is because that's what people want. um, I mean, if you thought reality TV was bad, if you thought reality TV was a terrible reflection of the intelligence of the general population, YouTube takes you one step worse. And the way to succeed on YouTube is to produce the basest content you can imagine. You don't want anything that has any kind of thinking, any kind of subtlety to it at all. It's just not going to fly in a market defined by exceedingly low levels of education. So that's what runs. Something like what I'm doing, where I'm requiring an attention span. I'm talking about interesting topics. It's not gonna run. What's gonna run is makeup tutorials, um, you know, pranks, and fashionable swearing, booty twerking. This is what is going to work, and it's reflective. As bad as TV is, and has been forever, there is at least some sort of like there's some layer of critical thinking that goes into it, right? You might not have every show be interesting, and the percentage of thought provoking shows might be ever decreasing. But I mean, there's that little bit. If you took, if you made the X-Files and you put it on the internet, it wouldn't. I'm just picking the X-Files because it's the last TV show I watched. I haven't watched TV in a very long time, as you can see. But I mean, it was. Not every episode was good. There were, lots of episodes that weren't so good. But it was a relatively well-written show, decent acting, interesting plot lines. I enjoyed watching it. It would never work on the internet. If you put the production team behind it, you put up weekly episodes for whatever amount of time over a year, it would get no hits because the audience isn't. There's no audience for it. And the only reason why it gets the viewership that it does on TV is because the executives have monopolies on the transmission. Okay, and the reason is because people like me aren't even going to watch it at all. Okay. I'm kind of the vanguard on that point. I don't like people a little bit older than me might still be interested in that kind of thing, but people my age and younger especially, we don't watch drama TV shows anymore. Okay, that's just it's old hat. Okay, we read books on the internet. We read books. We look for music. We're just the idea of passive entertainment sitting in front of a screen is gone. and you're never going to get through to a younger demographic that way. We just don't do that. There's so many other things that you can do. The idea of sitting in front of a screen and watching a story, it's over. Okay, if you want to get people to sit down and make them watch the screen for an hour, then you need to be lowering the content threshold. It has to be very dull-minded, because the only people that are going to sit there for 2 hours are people that are dull-minded. I'm sorry, that's the reality of it. When I tell you that I haven't watched a TV show in 15 years, in fact, in 20 years, I haven't watched a movie in 20 years. Okay, it's not because nobody's presented this to me, or if you could do better, you could. No, I have better things to do. I don't want to sit down in front of a TV screen for 2 hours. I just don't. There's way too many other things that I can do that will take my attention. Okay, it could be my phone. I don't happen to have a phone, but if I did, but I spend all the time on the computer instead. Right? And what am I doing on the computer? I'm reading. I'm reading news sites, or I'm making music. Just the gadgets around me are far too numerous. This time where you came home from work and you turned your brain off and you opened up a beer and you turned on the tube. I mean, it exists still. Okay, but it's reflective of a demographic that's at a lower level of thinking ability, and the demographic that these quote unquote smarter shows were once aired towards just simply does not exist anymore, or to the extent that it does, it's over 40, and in fact probably over 50 at this point, and the replacement is not coming in. Okay. And this isn't just something that's going to hurt traditional TV viewership. I mean, it's not just people that, well, I mean, young people, they don't even get cable anymore. They don't watch TV. But I mean, it's not just going to affect that part of the market. It's going to affect the entire idea of a TV show, because they're just not engaging in that media anymore. Like, it's not that they're not getting cable and then downloading the shows or whatever. It's just that they're just not watching it at all. They have other things they'd rather do, right? And so this is the nature of what you have to deal with on the internet. That's the demographic that exists. And so there's not really a space for what I do. And there's never going to be. And I just kind of have to come to terms with that. What are the people that would be listening to me doing? They're doing the same things that I'm doing. Am I going to sit and watch myself rant for... No, I'm not. So, I mean, I might if I liked my music, right? So I might listen to an interview. I might listen to an hour-long Trent Reznor interview or something, because it's somebody who makes music that I like. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't care, right? So, I don't really know where I can go with this. This sort of premise that I might be able to hook people on a vlog is probably inaccurate, because I'm not... maybe if I went and got some firecrackers and I blew them up every day, that might excite them. Or if I got some cute kids, or if I started off every vlog twerking, or wore sexy little outfits, that might get to them. But the idea that I had that I was getting all of these hits and attention because people actually liked what I had to say, or liked what I was thinking, that seems to have been wishful thinking on my behalf, and consequently the conclusion that they might be interested in listening to me talk for half an hour to an hour a day is probably not realistic. I'm going to let it sit for a little bit before I take it down, but that's the most likely thing that I'll do. What I'll leave up is I'll leave up the segments. So there's, for example, there's the garbage bag segment that'll eventually close once the bag fills up, but that'll be up. The concert segment. There's the reacts segment. The react segment is basically what I'm doing with comments now. That's the other thing. I've said a few things regarding the comments over the last couple of days. It's going to be entirely video based. If they fix it, if they put in a front end on YouTube, then I will probably go back to actually writing comments. But so long as there's no way for me to have control over my content, I'm not going to do that. Rather, I'm going to do my content in video form. So instead of writing a comment and leaving it on somebody's video where it can be lost for whatever reason, even deleted if the owner doesn't want it there, what I will do is I will write it up. I will type it up by finger. I will record myself reciting it. I will put it up there into a comment section. Right now I'm just using the Reacts list, although depending on the nature of the comments as they expand, that will no doubt explode, and I will move. I'll leave a link. Actually, I can't leave a link because then I'm a spammer. I will inform the owner of the video that I have left a comment in video form on my channel, and anybody who would like to hear what I have to say about that comment can go to my channel. This is a little bit sardonic, but it's basically what I don't feel I have any choice. It seems to be that YouTube views a comment strictly as a means of providing feedback to what they consider to be a content creator. The idea that a comment might be content does not seem to have crossed their minds. And like I said, this is the fundamental problem underlying the split of the systems. They didn't seem to contemplate the concept of a comment as content. But I maintain that my comments are content, and that by breaking the system apart, they destroyed content. If they're not going to allow me to create content through a written medium, then they've left me with no option than to do it through a video. That's going to take up a lot more space on their servers. It's going to result in empty links moving back and forth. I don't care about that really. If I end up with terabytes on their server, then they can kiss my ass, kind of thing. It's really I would prefer. It's easier for me to write. I express myself better in writing, but they've eliminated this. I feel that we should all be agitating for that. We should all be trying to convince Google to reintegrate Google Plus and YouTube, and either tell the Google Plus user base to fuck off, or just why not just have parallel systems that are basically the same. That would be real stupid in a certain sense, but if that's what the Google Plus user base wants, then I've vented enough about them. I think it's pretty clear that I don't have a lot of respect for the user base of that particular platform. Less as a reflection of the platform itself, but because I know this type of person. I've been dealing with this type of person for 20 years. I was on the internet young. They're just hopelessly fucking arrogant pricks, and there's no way around it. Um, I don't want anything to do with them either. So I mean, like, they don't want to read my comments. I don't care, and I don't want to read theirs either. So it's like, allow the separation. That's fine, but YouTube is going to be hurt if it doesn't find a way to create a social front end. I'm moving out. I'm not the first person that's going to do this. And as the comment section becomes less vibrant, they're going to notice that their product suffers. I say that I'm going to move to comments. I'm not going to make nearly as many videos as I would leave comments, right? So I'm going to be far less engaged than I was before. I'm going to watch less videos, and like, for me, if I watch 10 videos a day, which is probably about average, if 10 goes down to 6, then that's not such a big deal if it's just me. But if you extrapolate that outwards, a 20% drop in viewership is significant, and it may happen. I said 20% because not everybody uses the comment section, right? But enough people do that it could be a bit of a hit. And like I say, it won't happen all at once. I mean, it took me 6 months. But if you look at a trend line, and if it is either decreasing or perhaps staying flat, because it would have been increasing anyways, it's going to hurt after a while. I think this is a MySpace level error. To prevent this kind of integration, because it was so good and it was so engrossing, you would get lost in it. It was exactly the way to hook someone. In fact, it was so effective that it took me months to pull myself out of it. You can think of it like that. And but I mean, it's like I no longer really see any reason that I would want to engage in the site on that level. Like I said, I think I pointed this out when PewDiePie wanted to remove his comments, and his comments came back. One might want to note that. He tried to take them off, but it seems like his viewership went down when he did. That's another difference between TV and internet, is that YouTube is not a one-way channel of information, right? It's not a broadcast medium. People are interacting, and it's the discussion and the comments are a part of the process. If that's going to be removed or obfuscated or made unenjoyable, it really takes away from what the product is. And it's the kind of thing that could, if not corrected, really leave YouTube as somewhat of a ghost town. As other products come up that fit the niche, I will tell you that I am not certain. I know that I'm going to launch a site with samples, and I mean, I will certainly put something on YouTube, but I'm not certain that YouTube is going to be the main place where I interact with people when I relaunch. I'm going to take a look around and see if there are competitors that have sites that are more social in nature, and I could very well see myself moving to one of them. Because the fact that there's no central social aspect of YouTube anymore really takes away from the enjoyment of it. And I really don't think that the people that are working this out are understanding this well at all. I always like to try to figure out what my point was initially, if I did have one, and try to tie it back. my point here that I really wanted to make was that I have actually finally. I mean, I've thought about this before, and the thoughts crossed my mind, and I thought, nah. I have finally come to terms with the reality that the reason that my hits went down, I think that the disconnection of the services had something to do with it. But there was a delay. The more causal factor does seem to be the fact that I changed my profile picture from the black-haired, drunken gaze to a more photogenic blonde shot of myself um, that I looked a lot better in, and that was more unambiguously female, which is how I want it to be interpreted. Um, and that seems to have upset the people that were following me, either because I no longer fit the caricature, um, uh, which I would have probably likened to a Daria, but who people reading it seem to have likened more to a. Like I had all kinds of people thinking I was into metal. Like I'm commenting on punk videos and like prog and I'm commenting on all kinds of abstract music, and like because I have black hair, they think I'm into metal. I've I've never listened to metal in my life. I don't, and like you happen to get a shot of me when I'm drunk. I didn't even look like I listened to metal. Um, like it was just like it was mismarketing. And when you know what the person that I actually am came out a little bit more clearly. The people that I had accidentally attracted to myself became disinterested. And like I say, that's probably for the best. I don't see any point in like if I get a follower, if I get a list of 1,000, girls that think I'm cute and 1,000, people that think I'm into doom metal, and then I release a totally nerdy jazz techno piece that's of no interest to any of them. Or an hour-long Cosmish symphony. I mean, what have I accomplished? All I've done is I've produced a piece of music that's of no interest to the people that misunderstood me. So um, it was a waste of time. Blowing this all up and starting over again is progress. Um, and I need to look at it properly like that. It's just a little disappointing because it did seem as though people were actually interested in what I had to say, rather than in a caricature of the way that I looked that really had nothing to do with at all with what I was actually typing about. I'm going to take my pills and get back to work. Hopefully I can get... I was hoping that I could get halfway through 2015 by the end of the night. I think I'll be happy if I can get done at the end of 2014. See, this is a good example of the way that my new commenting process is going to work. So I'm going to have my little camera here near my computer. And I had just paused my Demola record here that I was listening to. And on this particular comment, I'm not commenting anywhere in particular, but this is what I would do, is I would type my comment out, move it onto here, open it up, and then read it over top of it. And of course I want to explain it every time I do this. It's just the first time. So, we have a quote here. It says, "It is absolutely ludicrous to suggest that Russia could be a positive partner in this," Mr. Bush said. It's talking about ISIS and the war in Iraq, which, I mean, it is now a war in Iraq. Jeb is so wrong. Jeb is absolutely, Mr. Trump said before being cut off by boos from the audience. "You've got to fight ISIS first," he added. "You have to knock them off strong." So, we have Bush taking the position that we need to work with Russia to attack ISIS, and Bush saying that that's absolutely ludicrous. Now, the way to actually look at this situation, we don't really need to have a debate about whether working with Russia makes any sense. The only way that you would even think that is if you didn't really understand the situation. Because the whole point of the whole reason that America is supporting ISIS is to eliminate Russian influence in the region. So when Bush says it is absolutely ludicrous to suggest that Russia could be a positive partner in this, what he's saying is that he understands what's actually going on. And when Trump says that he's so wrong, you have to fight ISIS first. What Trump is really saying is that he does not understand the conflict in the region. And so I say that Trump has clearly not been briefed, and Jeb is right. But how does Jeb find the forum to explain this, and will it help him if he does? And then I talk a little bit about the absurdity of the situation. They kind of have themselves to blame for this, though. Trump has absolutely no idea what he's even saying. There's no use in even debating with him. He just doesn't have enough of a grasp on the issues. Educated people can see that. But in a very real sense, Trump is repeating the propaganda that people are supposed to be repeating, which is helping him seem more relatable. So there's a deeper problem here. It came up with Obama a bit too, although I'm still not sure what the deal with Obama really is. It's an open question as to whether Obama was clueless or just pretending to be clueless. He seems to have been a very fast learner, if he was really that clueless. He got briefed pretty quick. The military plan was not altered. Wolfowitz is basically still running things, has been the whole time. Guantanamo was even still kicking, so it was really all total bullshit, wasn't it? So he either did exactly what he was told, or it was all a subtle ploy. And he was basically working from the inside. See, we think it's reasonable to suggest that Kirill, the patriarch in Russia, is KGB. But we think it's crazy to suggest that Obama was CIA. But it's really Occam's razor, actually. Trump? No. He's just fucking clueless. And it's not at all clear that he'll snap into line if he wins. So what happens? Do we see a change of policies? Probably not, actually. It's an assassination, actually, and nobody really wants that. Not really. It's a lot easier if Bush just wins the nomination. But in the long run, the propaganda needs some adjustment. I've been saying this for years. It's not even believable. It hasn't been the whole time. It's just insulting. And look at the blowback now. Might it make more sense to just be honest about it? Okay, so I've made it up to mid-October 2014. That's October 15th. And I found the post. This is where things started changing. The post is this: I like my disturbing photo. I don't like people gendering me incorrectly. So due to the vast ubiquity of human stupidity, I feel forced to change it. It's unfortunate, but I don't feel to blame. I wouldn't change a word of that statement if I was to post it again today. And I'm going to extrapolate on that a little bit more. This is a post that I posted to my new profile. It will eventually make its way to the video for this. But let's give this a read here. I just want to point out that it was at this point that I can trace the beginning of the decrease in my hit count. The changes in YouTube have not helped and make it almost impossible to reverse the problem, but this is the real root cause of the decline. I talk about this in the vlog for February 13th, but it's very depressing and disappointing, really, to truly be cognizant of what has actually happened. My metrics were consistently increasing up to this point. I peaked at over 3,000 hits in October, substantial and enough to think I'm growing, and I'm breaking through something. And by the middle of 2015, my hits were cut down to almost nothing. What happened? Well, it seems as though people were not actually interested in what I was typing. Rather, people were interested in my profile picture. I consciously picked that profile picture because it was a bad shot. I was very, very badly hungover. I liked the irony of this in juxtaposition to the world of fake media images. It was a kind of a fuck you to selfie culture. But it became its own fake media image. I had dozens of comments directed at it. The reaction was most instructive. The reaction that was most instructive was to point out that the nature of the commentary fit the picture well. And this is why the hit count increased so much. And I ended up with so many upvotes on my comments. It wasn't that what I said affected anybody or caused anybody to think about anything. People weren't indicating any kind of actual solidarity. It was merely that people found my picture amusing and wanted to see it near the top of the comments. It didn't really matter what I was saying, so long as it vaguely fit their preconception of what they imagined I ought to be saying. Other comments in hindsight were more illuminating than I realized. Suggestions that I look emo or black metal, for example. This was both completely wrong and entirely void of any substance. It was merely extrapolated from the fact that I was hungover. It seemed that a false perception of who I am was projected from the image, and it was that false perception that was getting upvoted and generating views. It also generated negative comments. Much of this was at a low level of discourse, crude insults that can be broadly summarized as claiming that I was ugly, and often in ways that forced me to research terms I hadn't seen before. This was annoying, but it wasn't what forced me to change the profile picture. What forced me to change was the misgendering. You can imagine how that might be irritating. I didn't upload the picture thinking that it made me look emo or metal or anything of the sort. Rather, I thought it just made me look like a hungover female with an overactive gothic dye job. I really didn't need or want this kind of abuse. So I changed the profile picture to a more recent shot of me as a blonde with a bit of lipstick. My intent was to prevent me from being misgendered, and this seems to have worked. In the process, the false projection of me as emo or metal or whatever it is that people made out of the black dye job and hungover eyes. And in truth, I mostly listened to instrumental music, although I once listened to a lot of SoCal punk, which is how I dress. T-shirts, jeans, and minimal makeup. Evaporated. So as people were more interested in how I looked than what I thought, the attention that I was generating dried up. I also think that my newly and unambiguous self-gendering alienated young girls that thought I was cute, as much as it alienated dudes that found out that I was actually seriously queer, not just faggy in a metal kind of way. Again, I've never liked metal. I don't even really like rock music in the broadest sense. The only rock music I've ever really liked is some early psych and the anti-rock strains of punk and post-punk and grunge. Rock culture has always seconded me. I'm a very bookish nerd. I'd rather hang out in the library. I have a degree in mathematics. I've studied deep into degrees in physics, computer science, and law. It's nerd total, and I'm not afraid of stating it. But that's not what my hungover picture suggested. And so everything came crashing down when I changed it. I don't regret this change, and I would do it again. Rather, I think I learned an important lesson. I thought people were actually interested in what I had to say about things. That admittedly surprised me, and I should be less naive about things as I move forward. In the broader scope of things, it doesn't do me any good to get thousands of purely social media level hits from young girls that are misgendering me and would be freaked out to actually see me, or guys that I'd never talked to. The truth is that I'd rather have friend level conversations with those girls and get hit on by those guys if they're old enough. The reality of everything being backwards was not useful to me in getting an image out. It was, and may unfortunately remain for some time, much more of a hindrance to me. And did I even want to get an image out? Was I gunning for subscribers and views? The truth is that I didn't ever care. I wanted people to listen to my music, and neither teenage girls nor metalhead emo guys are, on average, going to be interested in listening to my blender rock. Moving forwards, I should perhaps target my audience a little bit more carefully. it was maybe pointless to bother posting insults on the emo band site, as nobody interested in who I am or what I do is going to post there. I should perhaps be focusing more on music that I actually like, and less on trends that I do not. My discography channel will deal with this, while my vlog channel will focus more on my ideas and opinions of things. The reality is that this is all still experimental. There's no understood model, and in a real sense, I'm trying to accomplish the impossible. I get all of this, but I've learned a few things along the way, and hoping that I can apply them. But it was the profile pic change that killed me, and it's a really sad reflection of society. Style meant everything, and substance meant nothing.